Good evening. Welcome to Truth Seekers. I'm Mike Fishkin, and seated next to me is Vern Bissell, who holds a PhD in civil engineering, and his expertise, many years working, was in hydrology, the area of water. And our program, Truth Seekers, if you haven't seen us before, is about, can we know if there's a God? Can we know if there's meaning to life, or is it all just random? We discuss those religious and philosophical topics. We've been doing that for the last 6.5 years. And we feel we can direct you to lots of information that you maybe have not seen, especially if you still hold, like I used to an evolutionary viewpoint that we've evolved, basically, as secular science says, from chemicals to life, bacteria on up to more complex life, and eventually up to us. We feel that real science shows that is totally shown to be without merit in real science. It's really far-fetched leaps that evolutionists have to take in all areas that they talk about. We're happy to talk about that. About half our programs have been on that. And so we're going to continue this week with Dr. Georgia Purdom. She's got a PhD in genetics, and she was published in secular journals. Of course, they wouldn't publish her now, her scientific papers. It was peer-reviewed and everything, because once you come out and say you're a creationist or you believe in intelligent design, intelligent designer, they won't publish you. There's no freedom in science anymore if you have a different viewpoint than the agenda that is being promoted. She was published in the Journal of Neuroscience, the Journal of Leukocyte Biology, and the Journal of Bone and Mineral Research. And she's been dealing in this film, great film, with the 5 most talked about areas in relation to secular scientists saying, we think this evidence really supports evolution. And we're going to show some film tonight talking a little bit about the chromosome, the apparent chromosome fusion that's in the human, who has less chromosomes than chimps do, chimpanzees. But secular scientists believe that we both came from an ancestor originally and split off. The chimps went one way, we went another way. But that we both share a common ancestor, and that somewhere along the line a DNA sample, a chromosome that the chimps have was fused, and that's why we now have 46 and they have 48 chromosomes, or 24 pairs and they have 23, the other way. They have 24 pairs and we have 23 pairs.
So fused means that two came into one. That's why going from 48 to 46.
Right. But I don't know if you're aware of this. The secular media continues to use figures like the chimp genome and the human genome are 98.4% or so compatible, when recent research has shown that it's much different than that. It's probably below 90%. An astounding, they call it, secular scientists, astounding result when they did it the right way, mapping the chimp chromosome, the Y chromosome for the chimp male and the Y chromosome for human male, and they did it the right way. Everything else has been done of kind of a quick way. They recognize that. It was done rapidly to get results, and they picked genes and chromosome areas that they knew should be very, very similar. So it was biased to begin with when they got that higher figure. But now, when they did it the right way for just this Y chromosome, now they've got lots of other things to be doing the correct way, and we think it's going to drop, way down to 90% or below, and we'll talk about why that would indicate there's no common ancestor and you can't use chimpanzees with humans.
And could we talk about, well, if there's 90% common, that still means then how much difference does that really represent? 10% of 3 billion base pairs in the DNA means 300 million difference base pairs in the DNA. That's not a small amount. That's very, very significant. So maybe 10%, and that's a large number. Maybe that doesn't sound very serious, but when all of a sudden you realize that means 300 million base pairs difference, you say, whoa, wait a minute, there is a lot of difference here.
And to add to what Vern was just saying about the difference there, I've got an article here by an MD who said that he started to doubt evolution when he read his first article by a creationist biologist.
Oh, good.
And he looked at, and he said, I've never seen information like that. And he started to look at it, and he became convinced that evolution in no way is true. And he points out in this article that I've got here that we know of 4,000 diseases in humans that are caused by mutations. We know of no beneficial mutations. We know that radiation is harmful for a child. You keep children away, or adults, from radiation, which causes mutations. And yet, that's all the evolutionists have to hold their hat on as a mechanism that's essential for creating change is mutations.
Do we have time to touch on that a little bit more before you run the film?
All area, absolutely. Go ahead, Vern.
Well, before Michael runs the film, there's a very good book recently written, maybe about 4 years ago, and it's had a couple of revisions, by Dr. John Sanford. He was a career plant geneticist at Cornell University. He was a co-inventor of the gene gun, which has been used to create a lot of the genetically modified foods, whether you do or do not like that idea. In fact, he has a very high level of technical expertise. And for years, he lived with kind of the evolution point of view. But in later years, he realized it just didn't add up. And the book that he wrote, called Genetic Entropy, Mystery of the Genome, and in there he quotes other scientists who are not creationists, who are not Christians, that and present evidence is very clear that the genome is degrading, that the vast majority of mutations are in fact harmful, they are not beneficial, and that mutational loading, as it increases, reduces what's called fitness. Technically, I guess, to the people who do population genetics, the term fitness means the ability to reproduce, the ability to have babies, so to speak. And so those species or those versions that are less fit, then they will lose out in the race to survive in the populations of nature. And it's so clear, and even looking at the estimated increase of mutational loading for humans per generation, maybe some of the best estimates would be between 1 and 2% additional mutations per generation for humans. And no, that's wrong. That would be a very high number. Wrong. Let me correct that. 1 to 2% reduction in fitness per generation. And if that's a 1% reduction in fitness for humans, then that would estimate or approximate that the fitness of human beings living today, if you believe the story of the Bible of Noah, the ark, and the great flood, our fitness would be a little bit less than 25% of the fitness of the humans that survived the global flood and the ark. And the reality of that's another story, but there's a lot of evidence, and rocks don't lie. Well, they just lie there, but they don't tell lies. And but if it's 2% reduction in fitness per generation, then our fitness now would be on the order of less than 10% of the fitness of the people who got off the ark approximately 4,500 years ago.
And as I recall, Sanford said that the human species would die out in how much time did he estimate? Generations, within 50 generations or less or something?
We're probably 100. If it's 1%, no, if you go back to the time of the flood, if you estimate, say, 30 years per generation, which is, that's not bad, then we would be 150 generations past the flood. So here we are. So the other thing that's amazing about this is even in light of this huge increase in mutational loading that we suffer each generation, life continues. So it shows the robustness of God's creation of DNA and the life systems that God put into effect in the creation.
So how many generations would you estimate we might have?
Since the flood?
No, left.